Evening, everyone. Evening. Yeah, as Alex says, welcome to this grant funding webinar. We are here for the next hour to cram in as much as we can about grant funding. Thank you, obviously, to the Rugby Football Union and to Alex for bringing us in for this session and for everyone being here. I'm going to look to try and crack on. Alex has just done the house rules. Um, what's important there? What it is being recorded. As Alex says, yeah, get the chat box open, set it to everyone, and we're going to ask some questions. Going to try and get a bit of responses from people. So do find that, and we'll be able to kind of communicate with you throughout the session. This is what we're going to cover today. I'm going to quickly do a bit of introduction. We're going to look at where we find the places to apply. We're going to point you very directly in the place of some places where your clubs could be getting money and perhaps should be getting money. We're going to look at how we tackle our approaches to those funders, how we work out how to apply for them, the right projects, whether it's the right funder, how we unearth a few other funders in your local area that you could be going for. And then we're going to head into the forms. We're going to have a look at some application forms, talk about the different sections that we see in application forms, and try and give you as much kind of top tips and advice as we can in this hour. If you've got questions, comments, please do chuck them on the chat box. We'll do our best to keep a track of those. So yeah, thank you. Just a quick introduction. Many of you won't have heard of Get Grants before. Get Grants is a grant fund, rather a fundraising consultancy and training provider. Really just jump on our website at some point to have a look at the stuff that we do, fundraising services, consultancy, training, masterclass sessions. Best thing about Get Grants is we do a huge amount of stuff for free. We do an annual conference that has 4,000 or 5,000 people attending. We do probably three, four free webinar sessions a month. So do try and stay in contact with us, jump on the website and just have a look at how you can benefit from the free things that we do as well as the RFU. That will do. So do say hello in the chat box. I'm just interested in people's level of bid writing experience. So really just you as an individual rather than the club. Can you give me a number in the chat box? Give us a 1 to 10 based on your bid writing experience and knowledge, whether you know much or whether you don't know much. Thank you, everyone. Very good. Loads and loads of ones. We got a couple. I saw a sneaky 10 flyby and a couple of eights and a seven. Interesting. Thank you, Natalie. And also the second question there, just anything you want to tell us at this point. What are you looking to learn? What are your weaknesses? What frustrations? What do you hate about bid writing? What's the bit of knowledge that you're super, super keen to pick up today? So as anyone got any thoughts, do let us know. We've got loads and loads of ones. I'm not accepting the zero. Zoe, even those of you who know absolutely nothing, I'm convinced there is that little bit of knowledge somewhere that we can eke out. Those of you who are high, I think it was Ross who was on a 10. I still reckon I can teach you something, Ross. But even your sevens and eights, most of us as bid writers are self-taught, self-learned. I've been doing this for 20 years and I probably feel like I'm making it up as I'm going along still. Even if you're really experienced, we're going to hopefully confirm a lot of stuff that you know, hopefully tell you that you're on the right tracks, but still give you those kind of little hints and tips that perhaps you haven't thought of. So let's have a look at what you people are looking to learn. Places to apply, of course. We're going to tell you some very obvious places that you should be applying for and how to attack them, but also how to unearth lots of more places as an organization. I did see something about governance. Someone was asking about. We're going to need to look at that. Maybe they didn't. Maybe I dreamt. That do's and don'ts. How to make your bid stand out. Thank you, Neil. It's super competitive at the moment. Anyone who does bits of bid writing will know that success rates are dropping. More and more places, more and more organisations are applying for grants. It's more competitive, I think, than it's ever been. And so we do need to make our applications stand out. We do need to make sure we do everything we can to have our biggest chances of success. And we'll talk about a number of things around that. What else? We got top tips. Obviously, is it worth paying someone? Interesting, Alan. As a consultancy, we would advise the first step is to give it a go yourself. And one of the things we want to learn today is bid writing isn't rocket science. If you do the basics right, you should see successes. And most of the basics is something it's stuff that us as individuals, as volunteers, as newbies to bid writers can do. Perhaps if you're doing a massive development and you're looking at six, seven figures, you're going to need some external support. But small grants games, five, tens, 20s, up to 50s, you really can be doing those yourself. And that is why you are here. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. AI is interesting. Thank you, Alan. Ask me towards the end, and we'll find a little comment to make about AI. In the short term, I think we should be writing our own applications and developing. AI is a really useful tool to help us over stumbling blocks and to make tweaks and changes. But interesting questions. Thank you. So just one of my favorite slides that I always talk about. I can't remember the last time I did a session without showing a slide a little bit like this. This is a bit of research done by the Institute of Fundraising called Fund Ratios. And this is old data, number of years old now, but recent data that we've seen really kind of shows that the picture hasn't changed that much. This pictorially works really nicely, so I still use this one. The slide shows return on investment. Slide shows that every pound of time, money, and energy that you put into the fundraising techniques that it says at the bottom of the slide, this is the return that you get for your investment. As a sector average, I guess. Pick on something in the middle. We'll go special events. Special events is great for rugby clubs. Those of you who are doing your, I don't know, your open daisy competitions, your beer festivals, for every pound of time, money, energy that you're putting into fundraising events, you are getting £2.38 in return, more than doubling your money. It's what's 150% return. Anyway, you're more than doubling your investment. To the right, we have more traditional, slightly old-fashioned, people-intensive fundraising. Our local fundraising is our community fundraising efforts, which are less cost effective than special events. And then you can see we can go left. I'm gonna have a look at I'm gonna have a quick mention of committed giving. Thank you for that question. A quick mention of committed giving and membership. Those of us in fundraising would call that individual giving. You might call that your subscriptions. You might call it your membership. Might call it your your direct debit, your standing order donations. For every pound of time, money, or energy that you put into individual giving or committed giving, you're getting 644 in return. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into getting someone to support you on a regular basis, giving you their bank details, agreeing a certain amount to support you. But the research shows that once people sign up with it, they stick with you for a long time. The far one is why we want to show this slide. We've got the word trust there. We can change the word here for bid writing, for grant fundraising, for trusts and foundations, for filling in application forms. For every pound you spend on time, money, or energy filling in application forms, we are getting £9.56 in return. It is easily the most cost-effective way of fundraising, and we see lots of organisations, and I reckon rugby clubs are really guilty of this, doing lots of the others, maybe chasing some corporates, certainly putting on fundraising events, certainly doing interesting, silly, ridiculous community fundraising efforts. But then who did we have here? The secretary, the chair, the fundraising committee go, oh, we haven't got time. We should be applying to the lottery. We should be applying to Sport England. We should be applying to the RFU. We should be applying for one of those landfill tax operators, but we haven't got the time. What this slide should be showing to us is telling us this is a justification of time. If we can put time and energy into all of our fundraising efforts, and of course we should be doing lots of other fundraising efforts, why can't we find the time for bid writing? So do bear that in mind. Thank you for the questions about the slide. What did I see? I saw the orange and blue. I realise it's a little bit, it looks like a weird shadow. Um, it's two different years, two subsequent years, and it's meant to show that there's a little bit of change in those areas, but it's a number of years old, so it doesn't really help us. The figures are relatively kind of indicative now. Alex, people are asking about legacy fundraising. We're really, really interested in legacy fundraising at the moment, and I'm going to keep on trying to convince Alex that we could do something around that. So bid writing. I'm going to make a few really obvious points, but followed up with really important points that I really hope you can kind of cling on to a little bit. What did someone ask as well before? We will get the slides. Yes, we will get the slides. Thank you, Aidan. We will send the slides out to you. Alex, I assume you're doing a follow-up. Shout at me if I'm wrong. We'll be doing a follow-up email with all the slides. We're also recording it. So if you drop off, you can get a recording. So just get in contact with Alex and the organisers if you have any issues. What is bid writing? Layman's terms, super, super simple. Written request in the form of an application form or letter. We've got to be able to write something down and send it off to someone. Within that means we've got to have an average ability of putting sentences together, of writing paragraphs, of stringing words together that make some sense. The sector is really poorly put together to support those of us who struggle in that area. So if you do have those challenges, buddy up, work with other people, work with the club, work with the committee, get yourself an assistant, get yourself a volunteer, get yourself a sidekick who can help get those arguments and those things down on paper. The other part of it being a written request is we find that people hate the kind of test element of bid writing. I get a lot of people coming on my courses and say, thing about bid writing is it just feels like I'm back at school. Feels like I'm back in my exam room, filling in a form, and someone's going to judge me for how well I've written this application form. That is exactly what happens. And as bid writers, as volunteers, we've got to get over that and go, do you know what? I'm going to put a load of words, I'm going to write some answers into this application form. And if it's rejected, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to take it to heart. I haven't failed my GCSEs. I just haven't got the grant on this occasion. And hopefully, I'm just going to apply again anyway and hopefully get it next time. And so does have that test element, but I always say the best bid writers out there have the toughest chins. We take a lot of knockbacks. Success rate in the sector is about 25% at the moment. So most of the applications that I write as a bid writer are rejected, but I write enough that I get lots of money in. Second obvious point, there is always a criteria or a guidance to meet. You're always going to have the funder who you are applying to is always going to have some form of criteria. You've got to check that you meet, the check that you're eligible. And they're always going to have a guidance in terms of, well, this is the stuff that we like to fund. And so our job is to dig into that and understand what they say their criteria or guidance is. However, what the best bid writers out there do is they don't just rely on what the funder says. They don't just, of course, we are reading the guidance documents. Of course, we're looking at the application forms, what they say they're interested in. But the best bid writers out there are also going to look at what a funder does in practice. And hopefully, as a fairly good bid writer, I'm really interested in where a funder actually spends their money. What are the causes? What are the organisations that they actually give their money to? Not who they say they fund, but who do they actually fund? And there's an extra step in bid writing for some of us that not only are we going to read the guidance and download the application form, but we're going to do a bit of research. We're going to look into that funder. Can we find, and we can, through their websites, their annual accounts, through third-party websites, can we find details of grants that they've given? And all I'm looking to do in that is can I find that funder funding organisations that look and feel a bit like me? Essentially, have they funded other rugby clubs in my region or in my location? And if they haven't, am I going to be the rugby club that they finally decide to fund? Probably also that's really important for loads of rugby clubs. We are set up as these industrial provident societies, which some funders get a little bit confused about as a legal structure. And so some funders will say we fund all organisation types, or they might say we fund provident societies or industrial provident societies. But I want to check that they really have. Have they really funded other rugby clubs who have a similar structure to me? Because if they don't and they haven't, Or maybe there's a bit of clue there that perhaps I'm not going to be that successful. My final obvious point is it's a competitive process. I was going to say it's a race. It's not a race at all. It's a test, isn't it? We are filling in an application form. We're being scored. We are then being ranked, and the funder is going to give the money to the organisations who fill in the forms the best, who score the most points. It's a league table, I guess. Um, However, it's not that competitive a league table. Um, so in my league table, at the moment we would say an average. If a funder's getting 100 applications, let's say, they are going to fund the top 25 application forms. My point within this is my point within this is that the application which is top of that list, the application which is first, it scores highest, it's top ranked, is a brilliant application that's been perfected. It may be what some rugby club has paid a consultant a load of money to do the application to get it in, and they've done an amazing job. And they've spent hours and hours crawling over it, putting in a brilliant application. The application, which is 25th in the list, hopefully is written by an inexperienced bid writer, someone who's given it a go. They're putting some words on some paper and they are putting it in. But they've met the guidelines. It's a good enough project. The budget makes sense. Funder isn't blown away, but it scores okay. The application, which is top of the list, the application, which is 25th in the list, is going to receive the same amount of money. This isn't a league table. This isn't a league table where you get a trophy for coming top. It isn't a league table where you get extra ranks or extra points or extra money by being top. You get what you ask for. As a bid writer, I think I can write really good applications. I think I can write pretty damn good applications, but I generally don't. I write fairly good applications because my fairly good applications are good enough to be successful. One of the things we've got to try and do as bid writers is beat that perfectionist out of us and try and save ourselves a bit of time by going, do you know what? I've done this. I think it's all right. And so I'm going to submit it. So those are my three big points out there. Let me just see the questions. Aidan's asked if we fail 10%, are we right? Depends. Success rates is a hard one. Try not to get caught on success rates. You can find that in your early days of doing applications, your success rates are super high because you're going for the best places, and we'll talk about this in a second. You'll go for the places where you should be successful or you have a really high chance of success. Once you've done a load of these applications, you then have to go for the, I don't know, the higher hanging fruit. Is that the phrase? And therefore, your success rate is gonna drop. Do you ever know someone who has put a bid together and said, do you ever know who also has put? No, you don't. You don't know who else has applied. David and Will, it's really hard about knowing what's good enough, but you learn that as you go. I think the big point I want to make is, yeah, you don't know what's good enough, what good enough looks like yet, but I'm telling you, good enough isn't perfect. Do not try and pour yourself over an application again and again, perfecting the wordings and perfecting your grammar and so on. Do not need to. Make some good arguments, get your application in. I'd rather submit an application and get a decision rather than spend another 6 weeks finding bits of time to pick over it, to try and improve it, get it in, get a decision, move on to the next one. Right. Where do we apply? Loads of you were asking this at the start. Where can we find to apply? Oh, you can answer this in the chat if you want. What are the different ways in which you research or find out about funders? What can you be doing to identify places to apply? Cool, thank you, Paul. Very good, Claire. We're going to talk about that when I'm not. Alex is gonna. This is very music to Alex's ears here that people are signing up and using Grant Finder. Thank you, Simon. Local big companies. I like that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to mention that one. Word of mouth with the exclamation as well, Claire, is very good. I like that. Yeah, Alan, I'll tell you a couple in a second. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Word of mouth, I like that one. Just talk to people. Have conversations. If you're in a network, if you're part of your regional RFU, if you're part of the league structure, and if you're going to the secretaries meetings, if you're going to the fixtures meetings, have your ears open, talk to people. Who's the club who seems to be getting all the money? Can you have a conversation with them? Can you pick stuff up? Are you talking to the local parish council? Are you talking to local community organisations and getting bits of advice from other people who are applying for grants and getting money? Or are you sat in your front room just doing the applications yourself and not picking up from the sector? By having those networking, by having that conversation, you hear. I tell you at the moment, Sport England are chucking out money. I think there's something about the end of the financial year. Every application we're doing to Sport England seems to be successful at the moment. But you don't know that unless you speak to other people. I wrote an application to Sport England 3 weeks ago that has already been successful. Um, Try and have conversations with other people, try and pick up what's happening. Other times of the year, people will be going, "Yeah, I keep on doing Sport England, it's just being turned down. I don't know what's wrong." And every club seems to be getting turned down. Maybe they've run out of money, but you won't know that unless you're having those conversations. Get yourself involved in conversations. Um, Here's my bit of a list. Some of the ways that we find out places to apply. First of all, existing knowledge. Um, Use whatever. Who was it at the start? Someone called themselves a zero. Was it Zoe? I can't remember. Even those of you who know nothing about bid writing will have some existing knowledge. I do this test on some of our courses for real beginners, and in real times, when back in the day when we used to go to training courses, I'd sit people down with a sheet of paper and say, just write us down some names of some funders. What is your knowledge that you've got already? And the attendees would say, well, we haven't got any. We're here because we're beginners. We literally know nothing. Well, say, just literally give it a go. Can you write down some funders? And if I did that today, I think what would happen is people would write down, well, I think the RFU give out some money, Sport England give out some money, probably the lottery give out some money. I think landfill tax people seem to give out some money to rugby clubs quite a bit. Tesco's are giving out some money, don't they? Maybe I've heard of some of the big trusts, maybe Garfield Western, maybe. And then you might go, maybe Heritage, but that's it. I haven't heard of anyone else. That's all I've heard of. And if I said to you, well, how do you know those funders? I hope the answer would be, well, they're the big ones, aren't they? They're the big funders. They're the ones that everyone knows that. They're the ones that everyone seems to get money from. My response would be, well, they're the places to apply. If there's anyone who has never, you're at clubs who have never done any applications before, the first place to apply is just the big funders. Sport England, National Lottery, RFU if you can, Tesco's. Those are the ones who give out the most money. So why would we apply there? Why would we even bother researching anywhere else if we haven't done those big, obvious funders? And so that's the place you start. And I think the second place you go isn't the second one on the list, it's actually the third one on the list. It's the previous funders, people who have funded you previously. Us bid writers, we are obsessed with reapplications. I got spreadsheets on spreadsheets of places that I've applied for previously and spreadsheets and calendars that tell me today is the day that it's 12 months since I had my last Sport England Movement Fund so that I can now apply again. Because I think it's fairly obvious the biggest chance of success is applying to the people who have given us money previously. Our biggest fundraising event is going to be probably the fundraising event we did last time, but we'll do it a little bit better. And so we do that in Bidwine. We apply to the places we've done previously. And those of you who are new within your clubs, go and chat to the old guy who's at the bar who used to be on the committee, probably still is on the committee, and go and say, have we ever had any grants? And he'll say, oh no, we haven't. Well, we did a few years ago. The local authority gave us some, and we got some from that local trust. And if you find those names that the clubs have applied for previously or had money from previously, they're the places to go for. Pick out those. Go and contact those, see if they still exist. Because they clearly operate in your region, they clearly give money to rugby clubs. You hit their criteria, or you did. And so we start our research by perhaps not even researching, maybe just thinking and talking. Once we're past that, we then do our online databases. We're going to talk. Alex has got a couple of slides on Grant Finder. I think that's what it's called. I'll give them a chance in a second. But we should all be using online databases. The RFU have one, which I don't think you have to pay to use, so you should use that. Don't bother looking elsewhere. Um, Past that, what else did we see? Local advice to get do that networking. Google searching is fine. Google searching is fine. Someone put that in the chat, didn't they? That was Edward. Thank you, Edward. And Zoe as well. Um, it's okay to Google. If I'm after a minibus for my club, I'm going to Google grants for minibuses. And I don't expect to find the perfect fund at the top of my Google list, but I might find a resource, an article, a news story, a link to something that leads me down a path that helps me find a funder. It's fine to do that. Sign yourself up to newsletters and other groups funders. If you have that time, just do a bit of desk-based research. Just sit at your laptop, start to Google whatever your region is, whatever your county is, rugby clubs, and have a look at other rugby clubs and see, well, have they got anything? Have they got a news story where the chairman stood in front of a new 5G pitch with a massive check in front of it from a local funder? Because if he has, that's a local funder you should be talking to. Or have they just got, don't know, maybe they're doing an open day and it's paid for by the Asda Foundation or by someone. Can you find that information by looking at similar organisations to you in your location? Doesn't even have to be rugby clubs, does it? There's a hockey club around the corner, there's a football club down the road. Well, they seem to do all right for grants. What can I find from ideally talking to them? But if not, getting on their websites. I'm going to crawl through their annual accounts if I can and see if I can find some donations and find some names of funders. Um, so there's a load of different ways that we can go about to find places to apply. I think I'm going to hand over. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to do two funders that I want to mention for giving Alex the chance to talk about the RFU. Just Sport England Movement Fund. Like, if you haven't applied there, this is where you should be applying. So please do have a look at it and write it down on the pad of paper in front of you and do it. What does the England Movement Fund does? Sport England are only interested in increasing participation in sport. That's all they're interested in. They're not interested in anything else that you achieve. They're not interested in the social impact, the isolation that we address, the mental health impact we have on so many men in sport. They're interested in getting more people to play sport. So give them a project, apply to them for a project that's going to get more people into your club or more people doing sport within your club. They call it tackling inequalities and helping more people get active. It means more people playing sport. They do prioritize groups that face barriers to activity. That, of course, will mean disabilities, will mean poor mental health, will mean BAME communities, will mean women and girls is a priority for them as well. But they also fund a lot of male sport as well. The big thing for sport in England has to be new and different. So these have to be people that we can argue aren't taking part in sport, aren't part of your club already, aren't just coming along to existing activities that you're delivering already. They also do get worried about poor value for money. So you need your numbers to be quite good, but rugby club, you're fine. There's a couple of coaches, 25, 30 kids, you're probably going to be fine. But also they need your projects to lead to sustained participation. If you're just going to do a holiday club for 6 weeks and the kids are going to disappear and probably give up sport, that's not what they're interested in. But if you can engage kids into your club for 6 months and then give them a pathway to start playing in your juniors and minis, then they would relatively bite your hand off, I would say. So do have a look. You can get up to £15,000 a year from them if you've had a grant from them already this year. So you had 6, 7 grand from them last already this year. You can jump in again and ask for another, whatever that shortfall is, 8 or 9 grand. So you can put two applications in at the same time if you want, but you can't get more than 15 grand a year. No, Sport England is not just for charities or fund any organisation type. Do have a look at that. My other one, I'm going opposite end of the spectrum. Awards for All. Awards for All is a great funder that lots of you will have heard of. Applied for up to 20 grand nowadays from Awards for All. The big thing about Awards for All, they don't really like sport. They don't really like sport because they think if you're doing sport, you should apply for Sport England. But they don't mind, but actually they quite like sport that delivers other outcomes. So if your project is just about getting kids into rugby and having them play rugby for the rest of their life, do not go to awards for all. But if you're using rugby as a tool to make a bit of a social impact on people, then it's great tool. We see lots and lots of rugby clubs do things like maybe the walking rugby. Walking rugby is perfect for awards for all. Maybe some of your reminiscent stuff as well. Anything, maybe if you're doing employability through sport, maybe if you're doing your disability stuff. There's a range of different ways, so make sure you're doing stuff more. Um, Awards for all, thank you, Aidan. Awards for all wouldn't really care if it's a multi-sport or it's solely rugby. It's absolutely about the outcomes. It's absolutely about the thing that you're going to achieve. So whether you're doing a multi-sport session to address isolation or a rugby session to address isolation, it doesn't really matter. So we're really focusing on awards for all on the outcome that we're going to have on our people. That's interesting. We got a floating hand from somewhere. Alex, you want to tell us a bit, maybe RFU have got some money occasionally for clubs?
Yes, thank you, John. So the RFU as well does obviously for a number of years, over 20 years, we've given money to a whole host of facility projects from clubhouses, changing rooms, floodlights, and things. But it constantly changes as the world does. So what sort of things have we got available now and sort of looking into the future? Well, with the Women's World Cup happening later this year, quite a lot of our funds that we've been giving out have been linked to that. You might have heard of Impact 25. So one of the big things of that, they've all been given out now, but 70 clubs got £10,000 for social space projects to do up their social space, the bar area and things. That project, like a lot of the projects, you have to get partnership funding. So the projects was over £20,000. You could get £10,000 from us from that. You'll start to see a bit of a theme on these. That how would you have applied for that? Well, you'd have been invited, and that's what a lot of our funds are. You sort of got to keep communicating with us, which I'll sort of give you messages about what you need to do, and then you get invited to sort of take up those awards. The next one's grass pitches, which we do have, and we do have going forwards once a year, working with the Football Foundation. So the Football Foundation actually give the money out. You actually do have to apply for to the Football Foundation, but again, we will sort of invite you to actually take up that. Now, how do you get on the list to sort of get that grass pitch funds? So the grass pitch funds that are available there are pitch maintenance funds for operational costs, 14,400 over 6 years. Each pitch, so you might be able to get max 2 pitches improved on that. But after year 3, then you would be putting into partnership funding again. So you get 100% to start with for the first couple of years on that pitch maintenance fund. Now, how do you access that? Well, you need to get in contact and get one of our, and I can see there, Pitch Power. So the pitch advisors, get our pitch advisors to come out there, use Pitch Power app, get a report, and then from that report, that is where once a year we would invite you to apply for that. The other one that is available is Pitch Maintenance Machinery Fund, which is £10,000 to £20,000 with partnership funding, and you can get a menu of things. So that is for equipment to actually maintain your pitches there. But the way you access this, the starting point is get some of our pitch advisors to come out to you, do an assessment of your grounds, your pitches, and then we would invite you to that. Yes, you'd still have to apply for the Football Foundation. We put a webinar on for those clubs that are involved, basically sort of giving you ideas of what you really need to put into that application. We do give out small grants. This keeps changing, and it's going to change quite a bit recently. So some people may, for the last 3 years, a very simple application, recruiting volunteers. We've had £500. That's come to an end this year. Quite a lot of that sort of focus is coming to an end. They also, as well, there was money given out for girls rugby linked to the Impact Project. Again, sort of small grants of £500 to do this. Across the whole of England, you'll all be members as clubs of our constituent bodies. So who are the constituent bodies? So those are Middlesex Rugby Football Union, Yorkshire Rugby Football Union, and they all sort of put together their own funding streams. So it's worth making sure that you're in contact with your sort of county association, that's Staffordshire Rugby Football Union, etc. And they all give out. But there's 28 of those, so they all are very, very different. Now, what have we got going on going forwards? So for the next 4 years, we will have a big focus. And the big focus will be on giving out 100 set of floodlights over the next 4 years. It has been said, over the next 8 years, we want to give out 200 sets of floodlights and things. Again, you'd be invited to that on. And as you can see with that, I'm just trying to give that message. It constantly changes, but what you've got to do is sort of engage with us, as you can see with the grass pitches. And John, if you just move us on to the next bit, that this is the important message for our funds, because a lot of them are invited. Those constituent bodies, Staffordshire Rugby Football Union, Yorkshire Rugby Football Union, etc., they will do every single year, ask you what your main facility needs are. And so you need to make sure you're in that plan. Each constituent body will have a facilities lead. So if you don't know if someone's submitted it or what's been put in for your club, get in contact with them or get in contact with your RFU facilities team. They'll be able to tell you what you've been put in. But if people don't respond to this, if clubs don't respond to it, you won't even be in there to identify funds to invite you for. And as you can see there, every club, that's your high priority needs. Then we start to do an assessment. And from that, you would be invited when we get funds available. And just the final slide there, John, before I finish, it just shows this is what people saying what they've needs for. So because of what clubs are putting into their facilities needs, as you can see, that pitch maintenance stuff with the Football Foundation, that's come out very, very high. So we've gone and worked with Sport England and the Football Foundation to try and do that. You can see floodlights is a massive need there with a need of mobile upgrades and things. So hence why sort of our funds have gone into that area, particularly on the on-pitch needs going forwards for the next 4 years. So that's just right. So my big message is make sure you're into the facilities plan. If you haven't had a pitch advisor out, come and get a pitch advisor out. Engage with us. Keep making sure you're communicating with that. And then obviously as things come up, you will be invited to get involved with that. Over to you, John.
Cool, thank you. And whilst Alex clearly is stressing the importance of talking to the constituent body and having that relationship with the RFU, it's the word that always comes into my head is credibility, and it's about trust. And the point that the RFU would want to be able to invite you, would want to talk to you, is because this is big investment, isn't it? And all funders are considering trust. They're considering credibility. They're looking at you as an organisation, going, "Can we trust these guys to give them £5,000, £10,000, £20,000, £100,000?" And that relationship building at times is super, super important. So yeah, do bear that in mind. Sorry. Right. So we following on. We've talked about the ways that we can do our research. Just to reiterate, those of you who are brand new to this, those of you who are clubs who just haven't applied for any grants anytime recently, go to the obvious ones. You don't have to. You don't need to use, what is it called, Grant Finder. You don't have to use the search engines. You don't need to do that much networking. Go and do your awards for all. Go and do Tesco's. Do your reapplications and have a look at those places to apply and crack on with those. Once you've done those, then you do your next tranche of research. Once you do those, then you do your next tranche of research. No one needs a list of 20, 30 places to apply if I've only got enough time in my evenings to get a couple of done over the next few months. So think about the right amount of research to do. But we're going to identify a load of funders by doing our research. How do we then pick out whether they're the right place to apply? We then have to research our funders. So our prospecting, I call it, our finding our funds, will come up with a list, but how do we then know whether they are the right places to apply, where to spend most of our time? It says they're previous funders. That's just to say, if we're applying to someone who has given us money previously, we don't need to worry too much. We know that they trust us. We know that we've got that credibility. We know that we meet their criteria. Therefore, I don't need to do too much research. I don't need to do too much double checking. However, for most of our other funds, someone in the clubhouse tells you about this local family trust who you could be applying to. A few people mentioned in the chat box about the local councillors, perhaps some local councillors having money that they can commit to projects. Well, we're going to have to research this. We're going to have to look into it. Can I find an application form? Can I find a process? Can I find some criteria and eligibility? And as I said at the start, one of the things I'm looking for is recent grants. I think that's really important, especially with the governance challenges that some rugby clubs have. I'm not sure it's a governance challenge, but it's a slightly different governance that many kind of sector organisations have. I'm going to look at that funder's recent grants. I'm checking, have they funded organisations that look like me, my legal structure, my location, the type of work? Have they funded other rugby clubs? Have they funded other sports clubs? And getting that feel of, well, actually they have, and they've funded loads of stuff in my county. It feels like it's worth a try. I'm then looking at the amount that they've given. Okay, so this funder say that they fund up to £20,000. What do their recent grants say? What do they fund up? What do their recent grants say? What are their average grants? So we get a lot of funders who say we will accept applications up to £100,000. You look at their recent grants, and every grant is 7.5. And so they will consider grants up to £100,000. But if you apply for 7.5, you've got a much better chance of success. And so we're going to amend our ask based on hitting what we think is their preferences. We're also going to see if we can find some case studies. Can I find some projects that this fund has actually funded? So the recent grants is great because it will tell us, well, they funded that rugby club. But actually, what did they fund that rugby club for? Was it for the mini and juniors? Was it for the floodlights? Was it for the 5G pitch? Was it for I don't know, the garage? Someone wanted a garage. Or was it for their disability stuff? Because those are all very different projects. And if they only seem to be funding, I don't know, disability projects, and I go to them asking for a tractor, it feels like it's not going to work, is it? And so we want to see if we can pick out the type of stuff the projects that they fund, not only that they fund organisations like us. And along the way, if we're not sure, like there's just no harm in talking to the funder, picking up the phone. No one picks up the phone now. Dropping them an email, using the contact form on their website, using the web chat, I guess, and asking them, do you fund rugby clubs? Or we were looking to apply for this project. What do you think? A lot of funders will then say, yeah, no, I'm not sure that project, but we are looking to fund in your area. Do you do anything with elderly or families or events or whatever? You'll be surprised how useful that conversation is compared to just putting in a cold application to someone who's never heard of you before. And just please, please, please read and reread the eligibility and guidelines. We do what we call meet the funder events at Get Grants, where we see funders come and talk to potential applicants, and they just go on every single funder we speak to will go on about the amount of applications that they get from organisations that don't meet their criteria. They say there are many, many funders out there who say we will only fund you if you are a registered charity. If you're not a registered charity, do not apply. You might say, well, we're a registered organisation and we're charitable, so I guess we're eligible. Well, you're not, because you're not a registered charity. And you will waste your time and funders' time by submitting applications that have zero chance of success. Check that criteria. Check that there isn't something in there that says we do not fund, I don't know, organisations like you, organisations that operate in your town or your region. and don't waste your time on applications which are going to be unsuccessful. Silly, silly point, but it's massive. Research out there says that 37% of applications aren't meeting guidelines and aren't meeting criteria. So do before you even start writing an answer on an application form, jump back on that criteria and just make sure and work your way all the way through it. Which brings us to the application form. I think I'm just going to talk us through this. I've got a question. What? Sorry, that's a good question. So thank you. Does being a cask count as being a charity? No, it doesn't. You're a cask. Aidan, I'm going to slightly flippant with you there. You're a cask. You're not a registered charity. You're a registered organisation. You are registered with HMRC. It allows you to get gift aid like a charity does, but you're not a registered charity. You don't have a charity number. It does fall different with different funders, and funders will say that we fund maybe Pete Howison Foundation's in my head. I think they fund registered charities and casks. I think that's their criteria. Again, if we're not sure, speak to the funder. There's a lot of funders who get confused by that. I don't think there'll be anyone here, but the people who are exempt charity, they have exempt charitable status. You haven't got charitable status because you can't get it, but does the funder understand that and does they allow you to apply? I would rather pick up the phone, drop them an email and ask them and to be told yes and apply rather than apply and get a letter back 2 days later that says you weren't eligible. Why did you apply? So yeah, do bear that in mind. Thank you, Aidan. Application forms. So I just want to make some points across an application form. This is across the different sections of an application form. This is, in my eyes, what application forms look like, and I understand that they look and feel different. Something like the Sporting the Movement Fund has 4 questions. Something like, I don't know, Garfield Western Foundation are going to want about 12 pages from you. One of the landfill tax operators are going to have about 30 questions in there. But within that, you're going to see these sections, I think, time and time. And again, let me show you this one. These sections, time and time again. And even those funders that just have Tesco's is essentially one question, but they kind of want all of this information. And so these are the stuff that we need to be able to write about. These are the stuff that we need to be able to put into, put down onto paper into our application forms. And so I just want to talk through each of these sections and give you some stuff to consider. Organisation background, what are we doing in that section? I'm not doing that much in that section. If I'm someone who's doing lots of applications, I'm not sure many of you are doing lots of applications, but if I'm doing regular applications, I'm going to see if I can nail this question the once and just use it again and again. If I'm on full trainer mode, I'm going to talk about copy, paste, amend, and review, because if I'm copy and pasting, I'm then going to change every time I copy and paste just to tweak it for that funder, to that application form, for that project. But I'm essentially doing this time and time again. I'm applying, I've got my organisation background and I'm using those wording again and again. However, I do think I do need to change. Just think I do need to amend that depending on my project. If I'm applying to Sport England, I know they don't have an organisation background section, but I will want to give them a summary of who we are. I can just talk about, well, we're a club. We got 4 adults team, we got a women's team, and we've got 16 teams in our minis and juniors. That's it. What else do you want to know? If I'm applying to Awards for All, again, they don't have an organisation background question, but I want to give them a summary. Well, we're a proper community club. We open our doors to everyone. We've got a walking program. We've got a disability program. We've got toddlers who come. We have parties in our clubhouse every weekend because people hire it. It's a community facility, and so you've got to shape who you are or how you're talking about yourself based on what that funder wants to hear, based on what that funder is interested in. Project titles. Thank you, Jackie, in the chat box. I think I was right. Peter Harrison do fund registered charities and casks. Thank you. Extra guidance for you there, guys, as well. Project title. Just to say, project titles do not matter. If you're applying to RFU for some floodlights, you might, I doubt it, you might have to put a project title put together for it. Funders really don't care. They really don't mind what a project's called. It's about the project, it's about the outcomes, it's about the people, it's about the delivery. Many of us as bid writers, I am one of those hates coming up with project titles. It just doesn't make a big difference. So let's not get stressed about it. Overview of project. Most applications are going to need some kind of summary of what we're applying for, some kind of executive summary, some kind of overview of what your application is all about. What I want to see in this section is a little bit of passion, a little bit of emotive language, a little bit of telling us how great this project's going to be and the impact it's going to have. So often in this section, we just see we would like some money to run a new walking rugby program at our club that will benefit local elderly people. I want to see more. I want to hear about the impact. I want you to tell us about the isolated individuals that you're going to benefit. I want to be able to picture it. We're going to develop a new and exciting program to benefit struggling, vulnerable people in our community. I want a bit of that energy, a bit of that passion, which I know it's hard to get when we're sat behind a laptop filling in an application form, but you've got to sell yourself. You've got to tell them that you're a great rugby club who does incredible community work and you're supported by a team of 100 passionate volunteers who make everything happen. Get a bit of that energy, get a bit of that yeah, that emotion into our applications. That was one of the things I can't remember who said at the start. How do we make our applications how do we make our applications stand out? Well, talk about your applications the way that you do when you're talking to your mates about how great the club is. Give that bit of passion. And it jumps off the page. Need, hard, annoying section of an application form, but such an important, one of the two most important sections of an application form, need and outcomes. This is what it's about. Funders want to fund projects that make a difference, that deliver an outcome to people who need that outcome. So this section we need to work hard on. It's annoying, but we've got to do it quite well. The point of need is not that your project is needed, not that the thing you're going to achieve is needed, it's that you can prove that it's needed. And so we're going to have to do a bit of research. You might have to speak to some people, get some quotes. You might have to do a little survey, bit of consultation. You might have to get some quotes from, I don't know, the local authority, the local police force, the local public health officer. I don't know, someone who can support that you've got some words that you can use that aren't just yours. You might have to jump on some research, some data and statistics, and put those in your applications to evidence that your project is needed, not just that you're saying it's needed. So it's going to be a bit of effort. Delivery plan. Depends how complicated your project is. This can be an annoying section. If it's something you've never done before, maybe you're applying for the 5G pitch and the 5G pitch has got a life of, what, I don't know, 25 years, and you've got to put together a 25-year plan of how the club is going to grow and how it's going to develop and all the new sections you're going to have. That delivery plan is going to be hard to do, but it's got to be good. And you've got to be able to project into the future and work out, well, what are we going to do in 20 years time, 2045, or we might be doing it under whatever's by then, I don't know, but you're going to have to do it because a funder's going to want to see that level of, maybe not 25 years, but a funder's going to want to see a level of detail. If it's a 12-month project, what's it going to look like in spring 2026? Give them that detail. Even if you don't know, try and work it out and provide it. Just has to be there. It shows, again, it makes you trusted, gives you credibility, shows you know that you care and you really want to do it and you've thought it through. Outcomes, again, super important section, need and outcomes. This is what it's all about. The big thing is, what is the outcome that funder is interested in? Not what you want to achieve. Maybe you just want to get more players into the club and more people paying subs and paying their membership and getting some money in. But what is that funder interested in? Are they wanting to just get more people playing sport? Or are they interested in building community cohesion, bringing people together? Are they interested in addressing isolation? Are they interested in improving communication, social skills? Whatever it is, talk in that outcome section about the stuff that the funder wants to hear. I can't say that strongly enough. Talk about their outcomes and tell them how your project is going to achieve the outcomes that they're interested in. Budgets, get them done, get them right. Work out how much you need to apply for. Get the breakdown. Quotes aren't a huge. You don't, we're not, most funders I apply for, I never have to get three quotes, but I do have to get realistic costings that I know are going to be around the amount that I need to spend. If I'm doing a project, work it out. Work out your facility hire, work out your coach's costs, your accreditation, your training costs, and get it right. Funders hate more than anything is love reading a project, reading an application, loving it, and getting to a budget and going, it just doesn't add up. Just doesn't make sense. And I just can't fund you. If your budget doesn't make sense, if your numbers don't add up, I'm not really sure how much money to give you. And I'm not sure I trust you with real money. So be super careful with your budgets. There we go, application form. Let me done all right. I'm just going to leave you with some top tips. If you've got any questions, chuck them in the chat box and we'll see what we can do at the end. But just some of the stuff that I wanted to leave you with that we've just about covered. With the need, this is a good one. With the need, we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to get some evidence to do our needs section. And I talked about getting stuff that we collect ourselves, like surveys, like quotes, like focus groups and comments and so on, but also using research reports and data. Best applications use both. Some of that internal stuff that you collect and some of that external data, which is proof, which I don't know, looks more professional. Give a mix of both. I've just done that one to death. Link your outcomes with the interests of the funders. Copy, paste, amend, and review. Be a copy and paste fundraiser. If you've got some good text, I've nailed this question, and this funder seems to be asking the same question. I'm going to use it. I'm going to lift it, use it again, tweak it a little bit, make sure it's right for that specific answer. But I'm not going to waste my time writing new text all the time. Submit your application and move on to the next. Fine. If we're not sure, I get the question I had in the chat box. How do we know what is good enough? Well, I tell you what, I'm going to submit and then I'll find out if my application is good enough. I'm not just going to tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak, and weeks later, maybe then I apply. Get it in, get it done, get a decision. And the big one for today, think about what that funder is interested in. I know, I suppose I've done that again, but you will be applying to two types of funders. Funders who are interested in the sport aspect of the work of what you do, and funders who are interested in the community aspect of what you do. You almost have, I don't do this, but if I had a template application for an organization, for a rugby club, I would have two templates. This is how we're going to grow women's and girls. This is how we're going to grow as a community provision. And that might include developing the clubhouse, getting more users, doing my walking rugby, doing my disability. And on my participation side, it's going to be my women's and girls, my adults, my minis and juniors. And really keeping those separate. So we're not starting to talk about sport for sport's sake with our community funders. Any questions? Anyone? Alex, any comments from you?
No, John, just looking at the chat, just some thanks in there. There's one, do you know much about the ASDA Young Futures? Opens on this Thursday.
Don't know much about the Asda's Young Futures. It's a good shout. Asda Foundation are making a lot of noise at the moment. They were just previously, have a look, there's another Asda Foundation one I think might be open for capital stuff. So anyone looking to do stuff, they're probably not going to fund your floodlights, but to improve your facilities, your clubhouse, to get more community people into your facilities. They do regularly, if it's not open now, have a capital program as well. So have a look at that. Someone put this earlier with in the chat about how do we approach kind of company funders. If you've got an ASDA close to you, you've got a good chance. If your ASDA is 3 towns away, you haven't got a good chance. Apply to the places that have a presence in your location.
That's it, John. Just lots of thank yous in there. Really interesting. I think it's given people some really good things to think about. Like I've put into the chat, do have a look at our funding page. It's worth keeping an eye on that. But now, hang on, there is a question at a ratio. Can you see that one from Simon?
Yeah. Ratio of what's that? More than 4-1 investment. Would you recommend the club paying for grant funder? Do they have to pay to use grant funder?
Not ours, no. But I think he means for someone to do it, basically.
Okay. A ratio for no, I don't think I would. No, that sounds a ratio sounds really bad. It sounds like there was possibly a commission fundraiser who's charging possibly a lot more than they should be, I think. If you want to clarify, Simon, just drop us a message via Get Grants on the website. I'd be interested to know what that is. Lots of people are saying now's the time to get started. If you're finishing this hour-long drilling a load of stuff into your head session and you're going, no, I think I possibly could do this. Now's the time to crack on. Now's the time to give it a go. Have a look at Sporting the Movement Fund. Look at the Tesco's. Give it a chance. Give it a go, rather than leaving it 3 months and going, oh God, what did that guy say about internal need stuff? Now's the time whilst it's fresh.
And John, there's another one that's just come in. Do joint bids with other clubs make sense?
Not normally, not for me. Not for me. I have a bit of a wariness of partnership applications. That's why we do joint applications. Unless a funder specifically is saying we will only fund if you're doing a collaboration across a number of clubs. My concern with well, in my head, there's no such thing as a joint application because there's going to be one person's name on that application and then a secondary name. And my concern is that as a club, that's going to be my name on it. But then half the money we get, I've got to give to that club. And are that club going to do the job that they're meant to have done? And if they don't, does that impact ourselves and impact our relationship with the funder? So I'm a little bit wary of them, but I'm more than a little bit wary of them.
Thank you, John. So we're at 3 minutes past 8 now. I think a good time to finish it there. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming, and yeah, good luck. Do have a go and get on with it.